What is up, my friend? Welcome back to episode 109 of the Anthony John Amy's podcast. On this Sunday Sermon edition, I want to talk about the power found in the pause. Now, I know we're officially only 2 weeks into the year of 2021, yet if you've set some big goals for yourself this year, and you're already finding yourself pulling out your hair from the challenges and the obstacles you're facing, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amy's podcast. The one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ. And my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. Now, before we get into today's Sunday sermon, I want to let you know about a free training I've put together for you. It's safe to say that most business leaders feel a sense of inescapable pressure and don't really know how to convert their stress into fuel, and as a result, few achieve the power of true freedom. Now, let's be honest. Most entrepreneurs are affected by mental health issues like ADD, ADHD, bipolar disorder, addiction, depression, or anxiety. It's 72% of entrepreneurs, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. So I created a training to help you out. This training gives you a process to access limitless ambition, embody higher potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. And you can get instant access to that training by going to trainingwithaj.com. There's no opt-in or anything like that. Simply go to trainingwithaj.com and you'll find all the training immediately available at your fingertips. So head on over there. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's topic, the power found in the pause. Now, several years ago, I was in Sedona, Arizona with a coach and a mentor of mine, and I think I've worked with him for 6 years now. And we were at this gym, and he had me doing these sets of push and pause bench presses. And ultimately, he wanted me to lift my body weight on the bench press that day. Now, I wasn't there for a physical, nutritional thing. It was a business thing. And at the time, I think I weighed around 160 pounds or something like that. And up to that point, I don't think I'd ever really lifted more than 120 pounds on a bench press ever in my life. I mean, growing up, I was a soccer player. I never really did weight training. It was lots of running and sprints and soccer drills. I mean, that's pretty much all I did. But here I was at this intensive with this coach to level up. And he had me doing these push and pause bench presses, where when he said push, I would push and lift the weight. And when he said pause, I would set the weight back down on the rack. And he wanted me to do 3 sets of 10 reps. And we started off with a warm-up set, and then we added more weights, and we eventually worked our way up to my body weight of 160 pounds for our last set. Now, by the time I came to my last set, I mean, my arms were just getting to this place where they were shot. I mean, they were shaking. They didn't really have much strength left. I mean, they were really just they're pretty much burnt out. And I remember laying on the bench that day in the gym, looking up at the weights and thinking to myself, how in the world am I going to find a way to lift this weight? And here I was on my last set, and my coach said push. And so I go to push the weight up, and my arms are shaking. I get the weight up about halfway, and he says pause. So I set the weight back down. Thank God he said pause. And then the coach says pause again. And I'm laying there thinking to myself, I'm I'm pausing. I'm not pushing the weight. I'm laying here. And then he says pause again. Now, I'm a bit confused because I'm not trying to lift the weight, because I had heard him say pause, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, maybe he wants me to take my hands off the barbell, right? So I open up my hands so I'm not touching the barbell, and then he says pause again. At this point, I was a bit frustrated, and I tell him, dude, I'm paused. And he's like, no, you're not. And I said back, dude, I'm not touching the barbell. He said, you're not paused. Now, at this point, I was getting really frustrated. I mean, what more did the guy want from me? I wasn't touching the barbell. I was laying there. I wasn't trying to push the weights. I thought I was paused. And in the midst of my frustration, he says, pause. He tells me to pause again. And at this point, I just lost it. I was like, dude, I'm fucking paused. What else do you want me to do? And he says, you're not fucking paused, Amix. You're thinking about how you're going to lift this weight. You're not fucking paused. Your mind is running 1,000 miles an hour trying to figure out how you're going to do this. You're not fucking paused. He goes, look, this time I want you to really pause. I don't want you to think about how you're going to lift the weight. If I say pause, just lay there, breathe, and be present. Don't think, just be. When I say pause, fucking pause, right? So I was like, all right, cool. So I laid there, breathing, feeling my back against the bench when he said pause, just being present with my breath. and my body, and he said, push. But I wasn't ready to push yet, and plus I was still a little mad at him. So I chose not to push, and I just chose to stay with my breath and be in my body. And then again, he said, push. And at this time, when I pushed, I was able to lift the weight effortlessly, and I set a new PR for myself, a new personal record. And when he said pause, I paused, I cleared my mind, I stayed with my breath, I stayed present with my body, I disciplined my mind. And when he said push, I gave it my all, and boom, I was able to complete all 10 reps of 160 pounds on the bench press. And honestly, I couldn't believe it. Afterwards, I stood up and my coach looked at me and he said, Amix, how's this pattern playing out in your life? Like, you don't fucking pause, bro. Like, on the weekends, you're thinking about work. When you're with your wife, you're already thinking about the next 10 steps ahead of you. And just like how you couldn't lift any more weight in your life, you can't give anymore. You can't produce anymore because you don't have the capacity or the strength because you're always fucking going. But if you'll take the time to actually pause, bro, you can move mountains. Now, this was a lesson for me that has stuck with me ever since. And honestly, it's transformed my life because I found that there is power found in the pause. You see, prior to really pausing, I couldn't lift the weight. Yet when I learned how to discipline my mind to really pause, to just be in the moment for 20 or 30 seconds, I found a capacity, I found a strength within me that allowed me to lift the weight again and again and again and again. And this was a huge breakthrough for me. And I'm hoping this lesson and this story will also be a big breakthrough, a big revelation for you as well. Because I learned, like, when I create pockets of time throughout my day to actually pause, it does something crazy. It creates more time in the day for me. Now, this way of thinking is vastly different than how I grew up. See, growing up, I was taught and I was told and I was modeled to go out and give it my all. In sports, I was always one of the starters. And if somebody, needed to come in and like give me a break, like that meant I was weak. And I didn't want to be weak. So like, you're not going to come and take my spot. When I did construction, we worked 10, 12-hour days, sometimes 16-hour days. We didn't take breaks. Like, we took 30 minutes for lunch, but other than that, it was like, get to work, son. And if you find yourself ahead of schedule, then you better find more work to do. Now, I'm going to be crude here, but pausing is for pussies. Like, no one had time for pausing. And unknowingly, I had a subconscious driver that wasn't comfortable with actually pausing because my value and my worthiness as a human being was tied to my ability to produce. Now, that day in Arizona with Jeremy Gene Wilson, that changed me forever because I learned there's massive amounts of power in the pause. I learned creating time to pause and simply be creates more time and more capacity to actually produce more results with more ease. And this lesson didn't just apply to my business, and it doesn't just apply to your business either. It applied to how I connect with my wife and daughter. It applied to how I connect with my family members, my body. It even applied to how I connect with my Creator. I mean, how many times have you been in church or some other type of religious service of some sort, sitting there thinking about, when will this lesson be over and what will I be having for lunch? You see, in this modern day society, to have you consider that we're addicted to thinking. In fact, it's what most people do all the time. Like, even when they're not doing anything, they're really not doing anything because they're doing something. They're thinking. Most people haven't learned how to discipline their mind so they can recharge their mental and physical capacity. And I'm here to tell you, when you learn how to discipline your mind and be present in the moment, it will increase your capacity to actually produce more results. So my invitation to you this day is this. Where in your life, where in your business are you not taking time to actually pause? And what is it costing you? Is it costing you more money in your bank account? Is it costing you more happiness? Is it costing you more peace, more joy? Is it costing you more connection with those that you love? And how much more power and production may be possible for you if you actually just paused? My friend, that's all I have for today in this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast. If you know someone who needs to hear this episode, send it over to them in their DM, screenshot it and share it on social media. Send them an email, a text message, whatever you have to do to get this episode into their ear holes. And also keep those 5-star reviews coming over on iTunes, because that is what helps get the show found by more people. That way they too can break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. Thank you, my friends, so much for being here. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amix podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamix.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.